Hello and welcome back to Mark's Garden UK from Singapore. Now, if you were watching my video the other day, you will know that I've already been to the botanical gardens in Singapore, but I ran out of charge before I could get some footage inside the National Orchid Garden, which is behind me. Now, most of the botanical garden is completely free of charge, but you do have to pay a little bit of money, a contribution, to go inside the National Orchid Garden. And you'll see why in a moment, because I'm going to pay and take you inside. And when I show you some of the things inside there, you'll understand why it can't be free. In all fairness, there's some massive structures in there which will require quite a lot of maintenance. But anyway, without further ado, let's go inside and take a look. So we're now inside the orchid garden. It's so much more than just a collection of orchids, this, as you'll see in a moment. There's a cool house and a mist house, and there's hundreds of tree ferns in there, which again you'll see in a moment. But how's about this for an opening gambit when you first enter? This beautiful waterfall covered in lots of different types of orchids. Absolutely stunning. Look at the intricacy of these flowers. An old tiger cage here. I don't know if a tiger ever lived in it, but what a feature to have in your garden. The enchanted garden. It's always nice to hear the sound of water in the garden. Another garden idea. This is just an old tree branch, quite a thick one that's been buried into the ground, and then they've attached air plants to the side of it. Gives a very jungle feel. Some of these ideas you can't do in the UK because we don't have this type of species of outdoor plant, but you could improvise and you could change it to maybe an ivy or another type of fern. And this is a building called Burkill Hall. It feels quite colonial, and inside here is housed a collection of orchids which are named after VIPs, very important people. And it tells you all about those different orchids, and it gives you a picture. And I was browsing these pictures the other day, and it's famous politicians in this particular area. And in another area of this garden they have a celebrity orchid garden, and those orchids are named after famous celebrities, but I seem to think that this is for royalty and politicians. Margaret Thatcher, somewhat divisive whether you like it or not. She has a beautiful orchid named after her for all eternity. Let's just go and have a look and a wander around. And there we are, it says it there, the VIP Orchid Garden displays outstanding hybrids that have been named after heads of state and international dignitaries since 1956. And each one has its own little plaque. And I love the way they've painted the pots here white and placed them in these borders. And that makes them pop. And it's another little design idea, I suppose, we could take back to our garden at home. I haven't yet found one named after Donald Trump. Maybe his day will come. Hold on tight and hold on to your hats, because this video is not just going to be about orchids. I'm about to take you inside a cold zone, which is inside a huge greenhouse. So stay with it and you'll see inside there in a moment. But for now, look at these. Aren't they incredible? There's lots of information here about orchids and explains why a plant can be classified as an orchid. Apparently they have 3 inner petals and 3 outer petals, which make 6 petals in total. One of the inner 3 petals acts as a landing pad for insects to land on and pollinate, but you can find out all that information on the plaques around the garden, or you could Google it. Another design idea here for you. How about leaving an area of ground untarmacked or unpaved and planting a plant within it? It breaks up the space and it makes an attractive feature, as you can see here. In case you can hear noises in the background of machinery, they're always doing work in this garden. It's very well maintained, and so I suppose it's understandable and acceptable occasionally that you will hear the odd power tool in the background. Again, a lot of the paths through this orchid garden are accessible and wheelchair friendly, and I have seen several people on wheelchairs and walking sticks. We are now in the celebrity orchid garden. Again, lots of orchids named after celebrities, but I want to bring your attention to this particular one here. Andrea Bocelli, the famous opera singer and tenor. And I love his music and I love his singing, I love his voice, and I'm a big fan of opera. And he performed here in 2010 in the stadium in the grounds of the gardens, which I'll put a little cutaway in and you can get a flavour and imagine what that might have been like. And this is another wonderful design idea. Look at this. A basket covered in moss with a fern in it, balanced in the crotch of where branches emerge from a tree. Isn't that wonderful? It's almost like a bird's nest with a fern growing out of it. I like that. Again, something I could borrow at home with a hardy fern and a piece of old dead wood. And up there in the branches, some air plants and some more orchids. Now down there below me is the cold house, and we're going in there next, and that's where we'll see lots of tree ferns, and it's refrigerated. But down here is a secret ravine, and actually the lower ground floor of the cold house comes out of there and comes up this path through this ravine here. So what we're going to do first is go in that door there, we'll go through the cold house, come out there and walk up through the ravine. You have to remember that a lot of this garden is artificial, it's man-made. That's got to be obvious, we are in the middle of a city. But you do get to see some wonderful plants in an environment which is as close as it possibly can be to its native environment. And now we're going to go inside the cool house. And I did go in there a couple of days ago and I did a recce. And just as when you come out you're hit by the heat, when you go in there you are hit by the cool. And you'll see in there some of the plants which we can keep at home, tree ferns and the like. So let's go inside the cool house. Of course it's necessary here for them to have a double airlock to keep the warm air out and the cool air in. And when you do come in, you're hit by a wall of cold, refreshing air. It's quite wonderful actually. It feels like I'm back home again. And look down there, a collection of Dicksonia antarctica. We're going to see more because we're going to wander down that path. But one of the plants I really do like, which I'm going to start collecting at home, are these insect eating plants. And there's several of them down here, pitcher plants. Can you see? Down there, a pitcher plant. And apparently they are hardy in the UK. Let's go a little bit further down into this cool house and have a look in a bit more detail. More pitcher plants there, wired to an old mossy tree stump. And look at this Dicksonia antarctica there with moss planted in it, and orchids or other plants wired into the trunk. Again, another design idea which I'm going to probably copy when I get home. Something you don't see in most gardens, a fire extinguisher. You can understand when you look at this structure and the work that's gone into it, why it's got to be charged at a nominal fee. Look at that down there. A mist spray, constantly misting the air in this cool, misty space. Now, of course, none of this is real. Those rocks are man-made. It's probably some kind of frame with fiberglass on it. And you can be forgiven a little bit for feeling it's a little bit Disney-fied, I suppose. But it's wonderful, nevertheless. It really does give you a feel of what these plants would be like in their native environment. I bought something like that from Marks and Spencer's once for my mum. I don't think they were this big. Just look at the size of these petals. Into a glade of tree ferns here. You can see there these massive trunks with the fronds or croziers reaching out for the light, and underneath here we're in a shady canopy. Now, I've been calling these spider lilies. I think they might be related to the criniums that we have in our garden back home. An interesting little aside about these bromeliads, I think that's how you pronounce it. These are those funnel shaped plants which gather water up at their hearts down there, which forms a little reservoir, and often in their native environment frogs will lay their spawn in there. The little tadpoles will grow and the frogs will hatch. So that's another one of nature's adaptations and evolutions. So there you go, a little guided tour of the National Orchid Garden at the Botanical Gardens in Singapore, including a look around the Cool House. I loved it in there, hope you've enjoyed the footage. And as you can probably see from the colour of my top and my hair, I'm slightly damp with perspiration. It's really warm and humid out here. So it's time for me to now enjoy a nice carafe of cool water and a cup of green tea. I'll see you back in the UK very soon for some more gardening adventures. Bye for now.